So I've championed the Astro Bot series on this channel for years. Whether that be Rescue Mission or Astro's Playroom, I just 100% fully believe that those two games are among some of the best platformers ever made. That's what I truly believe. So, suffice to say, I've been fairly confident in Team Asobi's abilities to take that experience to the next level with their first real chance to showcase their talent with a bigger, more traditional game. And boy, did they prove me right. See, I read my comments all the time, and I've seen those of you who've made fun of me for saying that I believe that Astro Bot will be a Game of the Year contender in 2024. And well, what I have to say to you all is that I'm even more confident about that than what I already was. So we will talk about Astro Bot today and its extremely impressive reviews and what all this means for PlayStation and their future going forward, because I actually think this could be a start for maybe more to come. Now, we also have some Xbox news to talk about because they fixed a couple problems that fans previously weren't all that happy about, so do make sure to stay tuned for all of that. But let's just go and get right into things, starting off with Hogwarts Legacy. In a lot of ways, Hogwarts Legacy really is the game that Harry Potter fans have dreamt about for years, and we saw that through all of its excitement. It's gone on to be one of the best-selling games for this entire generation. But at the same time, personally, I still think there's a lot of things that they could do to improve its formula. I mean, don't get me wrong here. I thought it was a good start, but I think there's still a lot of potential with an open-world Harry Potter game like this if they continue to learn from some of their mistakes. And that's why I'm happy to say that Warner Bros. Games just said this. Obviously, a successor to Hogwarts Legacy is one of the biggest priorities in a couple of years down the road. So, I mean, there it is. A sequel is absolutely in their plans, which, I mean, I don't think that should be overly surprising. Again, it is one of the best-selling games for this generation. But the way I kind of look at this is that they can now take some of that negative feedback that the first game received and maybe learn from that experience and push the sequel to the next level. As a fan of Harry Potter myself, I personally think there's still a lot of untapped potential with Hogwarts Legacy, but let me know what you all think about all of this. What's some of the things that you would most like to see in a Hogwarts Legacy sequel? Now, speaking of wildly successful games, we might as well just go and talk about Black Myth Wukong once again, because, I mean, just wow. This game is selling at an unbelievably fast pace. As we previously talked about, it sold 10 million copies in just a few days' time, and now, for its first 2 weeks, it's shot up all the way to 18 million copies sold worldwide. Now, that is something to kind of keep in mind here. It is having success across the world, despite what some people might want to make you believe. Though, yes, the majority of that seemingly does come from China. But I mean, if anything, I think that just kind of shows you just how big the Chinese market can be if you tap into it. And I think that's one of the really cool things about this specific story. AAA developed Chinese games like this aren't exactly a common thing. But when you see a game have this type of success, I mean, you can just kind of bet that there's going to be more to come. And for that matter, Sony's already been investing into that market with their China Hero project. They've been funding different Chinese games like Genshin Impact, which has also had a lot of success. There's still Lost Soul aside. That will be an interesting project. Hopefully, it'll turn out to be as good as it looks. And even here with Wukong, there's been rumblings that Sony pulled off some kind of exclusive deal with them as well. So, I mean, clearly, Sony has set their sights on the Chinese market, if anything else, and they can kind of see the potential is there. So, with Wukong's just, absolutely insane success, yeah, I think we might start to see more big projects like this from China in the future. Okay, so let's go and talk about Astro Bot. This game is set to release tomorrow on September 6th. I cannot wait. And I want to kind of talk about how this game is being received right now, and also just how this little game will impact the PlayStation brand going forward. I mean, the thing about PlayStation is that they've mostly shifted over to this blockbuster or live service mentality with a few select smaller games here and there. The days of getting games like Jak and Daxter, Crash Bandicoot, and Sly Cooper kind of seems to be in the far out past by this point. But that's also kind of where Astro Bot fits in. See, they just launched Concord, a game that they spent $200+ million on, 8 years of development, and it turned out to be one of their biggest flops of all time, if not the absolute biggest that the game industry has ever seen. It couldn't even survive a mere 2 weeks, but ironically, the day that Concord dies will also be the day that Astro Bot will be born. Astro Bot will officially be out tomorrow when Concord goes offline, and according to reviews, Astro Bot is now critically one of the most praised games this generation. It currently has a 94 overall score on Metacritic with 106 reviews, and it's currently being praised as one of the best platformers of all time that can go toe-to-toe with some of the best Mario games ever made. I mean, I've only been saying this since like 2018, so I'm not really surprised by this at all. I've been extremely confident in Team Asobi's ability, especially with them now getting a bigger opportunity. But yes, I think by this point, Astro Bot 100% is a Game of the Year contender. In fact, it very well could win it all. That is a very real possibility by this point. I mean, there's still a lot that could happen between now and then. We kind of need to see how some of these other games pan out, but I just don't really think there's a lot of games on the horizon that will get this amount of praise. And that's because Astro Bot is simply a fun and great game. And I think that's what really stands out about Astro Bot. It's clearly a game that was built by a team that's passionate and loves gaming. And I can't really say that about a lot of modern games. I think Astro Bot is just kind of a pure joy to play, and we're really seeing that come through in some of these reviews. And now I kind of feel like Astro Bot and Team Asobi almost has an even bigger opportunity to send a message to PlayStation. You know, the fact that this is coming off of Sony's biggest failure of all time being Concord, and just considering how much praise Astro Bot is currently getting, that's translating to a lot of buzz online. Now, can that translate to good sales numbers? We'll have to kind of wait and see about that. But if it does, then that might be the kick in the pants that Sony needs. See, for me, the idea that every game somehow needs to be a cinematic $200 million budget game, or it needs to be some kind of live service project, in my opinion, is just absolutely ridiculous. But that's kind of been Sony's MO for quite some time. Games like Astro Bot are becoming more and more rare under PlayStation. But if Astro Bot can find success, then this could possibly convince Sony to invest in maybe some other smaller projects. You know, who knows? Maybe we could start to see the return for franchises like Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Ape Escape, or any of the other number of franchises that they've just kind of shelved. I mean, if you look at something like Astro Bot, this game took them 3 years to make with a 60-person team. Meanwhile, your big blockbuster games anymore takes twice as long to develop with even bigger teams. I mean, I'm not saying that they need to abandon their blockbuster games. I'm not saying that at all. But I think they could strike some kind of balance between the two. You know, you could have some of these smaller games in between some of those bigger releases because they do take less time to develop. And that would also consistently give fans more to look forward to instead of just waiting years and years for the next big game. I mean, look at this year. What do you have? What do you have going for you? Not a whole lot of anything, but thankfully, we got Astro Bot. And all I can really kind of say here is that I am ready to play Astro Bot when it releases tomorrow. This is my absolute most anticipated game for the year and really for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, I think I can say I'm pretty happy right now. Cannot wait. Now, let's go and talk about Xbox, though, because 2 different problems just got fixed up. One is for an independent game that's made a lot of noise this past week. This is for Nautria the Last Song, which is a new Souls-like experience expected to release later this month. But here recently, their CEO blamed Xbox for an indefinite delay. Allegedly, Xbox hadn't answered them for 2 months, and he said that they don't care about us, and they don't care about you. Now, obviously, this caused a lot of controversy online. You know, what exactly is Xbox's problem here, and why are they not answering developers? Do they just not care about independent developers anymore? And well, apparently, this controversy made so much noise that it made its way over to Phil Spencer's desk. In fact, you can see here where Jayama Games gave us an update and said, "We would like to officially thank Phil Spencer and his team for reaching out to us so promptly and helping to resolve our situation. We would also like to thank our amazing community for all the support shown in recent days. Your voice has been heard very loud and clear, and your commitment has been heartwarming. We are now working closely with Microsoft, and we hope this collaboration will lead to the game's release for Xbox as soon as possible. Now, Xbox blamed this communication problem on tighter security protocols within Microsoft due to cyber attacks, which does kind of line up to some of their business changes. They are putting more emphasis on security, and we've kind of seen those statements online. But still, you definitely don't want to see things like this happen. And if it happened to one studio, I don't think it would necessarily be shocking if another studio is also having issues as well, kind of getting a hold of them. So, if anything, it kind of sounds like you can make noise online, and that'll certainly grab their attention. Now, the other problem that they got fixed up, though, has to deal with Capcom, and this is actually really, really good news. I know Xbox fans were pretty frustrated about this, and I'd say rightfully so, because unfortunately, the new Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection will not be available on Xbox when it releases for other platforms later this month. Now, this is because of some kind of technical issue. Capcom uses MT Framework for these games, and apparently that has some kind of problem on modern Xbox consoles. And, that's really just too bad because these games have had a history on Xbox consoles. Xbox fans have good memories with these games, and they're also just really good games. Thankfully, though, we now have an update from Capcom. You can read here where they said, "We're excited to announce that after technical discussions with our partners at Microsoft, we can confirm that Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics will release on Xbox One. The Xbox version will be out in 2025, so please stay tuned for more information." This still isn't exactly an ideal situation just because, it's not going to release alongside the other versions. But even still, this collection will eventually come over to Xbox, and that is really good news. It's better late than never, and hopefully going forward, they won't have this issue anymore if Capcom decides to use MT Framework for any of their other games. We'll see, but all in all, I guess Xbox is just out here fixing issues with Capcom and also independent developers. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but as always, hit that subscribe button if you like this type of content, and until next time, peace out.